Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well and having a lovely day. So for today's video, I'm actually going to be doing a bit of a different one. It's more of an advice video and giving tips and things like that. So basically, if you're subscribed to my vlogging channel, then you will probably already know that I recently passed my driving theory test. Well, actually it was probably about a month ago now. It was on the 4th of October I passed my driving theory test. First time, and I said in my vlog, would you guys want some like tips and advice? I could make a whole video about it and sort of do a how to pass your driving theory test first time. So yeah, it was my first time sitting the test. I had no idea what to expect, so I thought I would make this video for any of you guys that are about to sit your theory test and just give you some tips and advice and just kind of talk to you about it, because I didn't really know what to expect and I would have found a video like this really helpful and useful. So yeah, let's just get into it. So first of all, let's talk about what a theory test actually is, because I was surprised but quite a few people like on my vlog and stuff were like, what is a theory test? I don't know if you have to do it in every country, it might just be the UK. So before you actually sit your practical test to drive a car, you have to pass a theory test, which is basically testing your knowledge on like road safety, just everything you need to know when you're out in the road, like all the rules and things like that, road signs, all of that you need to know. So the theory test is split into two parts. The first part is the multiple choice section, and there are 50 questions in that. And in order to pass the first part of the test, you have to get at least 43 out of 50 in the multiple choice. And then the second part is the hazard perception test, and that is where you are shown like footage of the road. So it kind of like makes you feel like you're in the driver's seat. So they show you a video of what you would see if you were in the driver's seat, what you would see out the window, and that's where you have to like click every time you see a hazard, and that is marked out of 75, and you need to get at least 44 out of 75 to pass that part. And the thing that scared me most about it was that even if you pass one part and fail the other part, you have to resit both parts. So you could pass the multiple choice but fail the hazard perception, you need to redo it all again. It's not a case of you only have to do the one that you failed again, you have to do everything again. So I've got my certificate here, and it says that on the multiple choice I scored 49 out of 50, so I only got one wrong, which is why I feel like I could probably give some good advice on how to revise for this. And then the hazard perception part, which was the part I was really worried about, I got 61 out of 75. So now that you know what a theory test is, let's actually move on to my advice and tips for revising and studying for it. Now, a lot of people commented on my vlog saying that you don't need to revise or study for the test, it's just common knowledge and stuff like that. But I personally don't think I would have passed if I didn't revise and study for it and just go over things, because okay, a few bits and pieces are like common knowledge, but if you're like me, like I have no clue about anything about cars or anything. Like I had no interest in learning to drive until like recently, so everything was very new to me, and things that would be common sense to other people, like I just didn't know, so I definitely had to do some revision for it. So there's loads of different materials out there to help you revise for your test. A lot of people go down the route of just getting an app. I think there's the DVSA like official app that's like £5 or something, and you can just literally pay £5 and then everything is there. There's like case studies for you to work through, there's questions for you to answer, there's just like chapters for you to like read and revise from and just take in information, and there's practice tests, and there's like clips for hazard perception and everything. So that's probably the most popular way to go about it, but I actually went a different route just because I'm quite like old-fashioned in the way that I prefer to learn from books. I don't feel like I can focus very well if I learn from a phone. I don't know if it's just because I get very easily distracted. If I have my phone and I'm on it, okay, I'd be on that app, but then like a message would pop up, or I don't know, someone would like an Instagram post or something, and I would just like get so easily distracted. I feel like when I revise and study, I need to like put my phone away. So I prefer to learn from a book. I prefer to have something like physically in my hands, like a copy of a book. I like to highlight things, I like to circle things, I just feel like I learn better that way. So my first tip is to choose a way of learning that suits the style of your learning, if that makes sense. So like, what kind of learner are you? Do you actually learn from like doing things, or like hearing things, or watching things? There's that thing that you do in school where it tells you what kind of learner you are. Like, go by that. If you like to actually like physically watch things, then definitely go on YouTube and look some videos up and things like that, or do like interactive games or something. There's about to be loads of that online and on the internet, so just have a search for that. If you like to write things out, I would suggest doing like my way and getting the books and like notebooks and just writing out stuff. So the first book that I bought was the official DVSA theory test for car drivers book, and this book is massive, but it literally has everything you need to know. In the actual multiple choice section of the test, I would say that 95% of the questions that came up in my test were from this book. Like, obviously just like worded differently, but if you know everything in this book, then you will definitely pass with flying colours. I'd say that only like 2 or 3 questions that I'd never like come across actually popped up on the test, but everything else was in here. So this book I would definitely recommend. It's really easy to learn from because it's very colourful and bright, which I like. It actually doesn't make it seem as boring, rather than just sitting like and staring at a black and white book. It's nice and colourful. And what I like about this is the way it's laid out. So it's split into different sections and different chapters. So for example, this here is chapter 5, hazard awareness, and it just makes it a lot easier to learn because the information isn't like chunks and chunks of paragraphs. As you can see, there's like so many photos in it, and there's just like 1 or 2 lines of writing, and then like just like it's in bullet points and things like that. It's so much easier to take the information in. So I really loved learning from this book. So what I would do is when I came home from work, I would literally do like a chapter a night. Now it kind of depends because some of the chapters are longer than the other ones and you might not want to do that much. My mum thought I was like doing too much at once, but I prefer to just like do like a couple weeks of intense study and then take my test. That's kind of the way I wanted to do it. But if you want to like break it down even into like smaller little bits and do your studying like over a longer time, then definitely do that as well. So yeah, just do what suits you. I roughly did like a chapter a night, and then like sometimes obviously I didn't study at all. I was like busy or whatever, or you know, you don't have to do it like every single night. Just make sure you're putting some time into it. You don't have to put all your time into it obviously, but just enough. I mean, everybody's different and you'll know yourself how long it takes you to learn and take in information. Some people can take information in a lot quicker, but for me, I have to like reread things a lot because sometimes I can read something and I'll be like, what the hell did I just read? Especially if I'm like really tired and just like come home from work or whatever and I literally just want to sleep. So everybody's different in that way as well. So yeah, I would literally just read through a chapter, and then at the end, what I love, it like tests your knowledge at the end of every single chapter. So there are loads of questions for you to answer. And so what I did was I would read through the chapter and then I would take my notebook. I have a specific notebook for my theory notes, and if there was something that I was like, okay, I did not know that, I need to make note of that, or like I need to look into that a bit more because I don't understand that, or I might forget that because it's a statistic or something, I would write it down into my notes. So I also made sure that my notes were nice and colourful as well, just because I think that when you're revising and studying for anything, like not even just a theory test, like if you're watching this and you have exams for school or something, this is a good way of making studying a little bit more fun. Like obviously you can't make studying fun, but you know what I mean. Just make sure you make your notes like all colourful and neat and stuff like that. That's basically what I did, and I wrote down the things that I thought I would have to like look over again. So basically what I was doing was condensing this book because there was quite a lot in it that once I read once I was like, okay, I won't forget that. But things like statistics and things like that, for example like braking distances and like stopping distances and things like that, and like there's quite a lot of like numbers in it as well. You don't realize, but there's a lot of like statistics that you need to learn, so I would write those down as well. So then at the end of each chapter I would answer the questions which test your knowledge. So I would go to the back of the book and just write down all my answers to the questions and then mark them. So I definitely say a really good tip is to note down where you're going wrong. So if I got a question wrong, I would definitely note that down in my notebook, and then I could always look over it and then make sure that I know the correct answer and that I wouldn't make that same mistake again if that question were to come up in my theory test, because I would know the correct answer. So definitely just get this book or the app and just work your way through it. There's no easier way of doing it, you just have to read. And I think that if you're someone who likes to read at night or something before you go to bed, then maybe getting the book might be a good idea. Do some evening reading before you go to bed. It's a great way to learn. So definitely this book and a notebook and just writing down things, highlighting things, those are really good tips. I also got two other books to help me with my revision. This one is the Official Highway Code, and then this one is Know Your Traffic Signs. I know that you can actually get this in an app as well, or I think it's actually online for free, which I did not know, so I got the book, but I think it was only like $3.99 anyways. But this is kind of useful, not just for your theory test. I think I'll actually use this like when I actually pass my driving test, well, if I ever pass my driving test, because I think it's handy just to have in your car, because it's basically like all the rules of the road that you always need to know. So yeah, that's kind of handy to have a read through, but to be honest, I feel like the previous book that I showed you is the main one. This one is basically just common sense. Like, I'd be surprised if you didn't know most of the things in this already, even if you have no experience of driving. And the Know Your Traffic Signs book I definitely found really helpful, because I was so shocked at how little you observe when you're a passenger in a car, because I had no idea about any traffic signs whatsoever, apart from like the ones that actually say things on them like stop and give way and stuff, but I had no idea about traffic signs, so I definitely had to get this. This book does have a chapter on traffic signs, but it's not got all the traffic signs in it because it needs a separate book. There's so many traffic signs in it, and traffic signs do come up in your test, so definitely just have a look through these, just keep going over them. I think another good thing to do, well, what helped me personally was when I was like driving in the car, like as a passenger with like my mum or my dad or whatever, I would just look out for signs and stuff like that. And actually what my dad did, which was really sweet, my dad is a lorry driver, so he drives for a living. He actually like had his phone like sat up on his dash and just filmed his journey one day, and he was like, here you go, Lucille, I filmed this for you, so you can practice your traffic signs. And so every traffic sign that came up, I would be like, oh, do I know that one, do I know that one? And the ones that I didn't know, I would then like go over or like make note of them. So yeah, that was really sweet of my dad. I actually couldn't believe he did that. That was so cute. So yeah, just if you're out and about, like even walking, because you're obviously going to see road signs and stuff, just look at them and be like, do I know that road sign? If I was driving, would I know what that means? And if you don't, then go home and research it or whatever. So yeah, that's how I learnt my traffic signs. So when I actually got closer to my test, I wrote out some revision cards, which would be another very useful piece of advice that I can give you, is to get revision cards. I think they're really useful, because you can just write down things in such like short snippets, so that it's easy to remember, it's easy to look over as well. I feel like instead of like taking a billion books with you whilst you're like out and about, I think it's so much easier to learn on the go with revision cards. So I would just take these with me in my bag at all times, and then like if I was on the bus going to work or whatever, I could just look over these, or you know, just whenever you have a spare moment where you're like bored, trying to kill time, for example waiting for a bus or something, I could just look over these, and they're just, like I said, in bullet points. That's basically what I did, was write out like some main points, some like facts and stuff like that. For example, let me find some. like thinking distance and braking distance and stopping distances, I always found those hard to remember, so I felt like writing them out was a lot easier. And just like lane markings on like motorways and stuff, like what red, green, white, amber and yellow and fluorescent green mean. So I would just write those out on my revision cards. They're so handy. I got these from Tesco, by the way, if you're wondering, and again I would recommend these for like any revision for like exams and stuff like that. That's what I used when I was in school as well. So to round up, for the first part of the test, the multiple choice section, you just have to revise. That's the only way you're gonna know the information. There's like no easy way about it. You actually have to put effort and time into it. But just doing a little bit here and there, a little bit every night, it really helps and adds up. And like I said, you can do it on your phone as well. And that's also really good for being like out and about. You could do that on your way to school or whatever, or like in your lunch hour or something like that. And just doing lots of practice. Like I said, there's lots of questions in that book, but also I used a few various websites. I will try and link them down below, just for like practice questions and stuff like that. I feel like the more practice you do, obviously the better you're going to get, because you will come across like so many more different questions that are worded different ways and stuff like that. And the more practice you do, the less likely you are to get them wrong in the test, because the questions in the test are going to be very similar, or if they aren't, then you're at least going to have like the knowledge as well to get them right. So I was pretty confident going into the test doing the multiple choice section, because I knew that I had revised and that I was prepared. But the part that I was worried about was the second part of the test, which is what we're going to talk about, which is the hazard perception part. I was so worried about the hazard perception part of the test. So basically I bought the official DVSA guide to hazard perception like DVD thing for like your PC or Mac or whatever. But the reason I was really worried about the hazard perception part of the test was because I just found it so difficult. So I did plenty of practice, and there's so many clips on this for practicing, which is really good, but I just couldn't seem to get them right. I was aware of when a hazard was happening, but when I would click it, like sometimes it would say I'd clicked too early, and I was like, how can you see a hazard too early? Like, imagine if you were driving and you saw a pedestrian was about to cross the road. Like, you can't see a hazard too early, you can only see a hazard too late, in my opinion. So I think it's really difficult, because obviously like it's just computer programmed and stuff like that, and it's obviously not like real life. In a way, like it is, because it's testing like how quickly you can react to hazards, but in real life, like, you can't be too early, if that makes sense. So for example, say like a tractor was coming towards me and it was on a narrow road, and I clicked and then I didn't click again after that, I would sometimes score 0, and it would be like if I had like clicked 1 second later, I would have scored 5 points. So I'd basically seen the hazard, but I'd clicked too early, and I was doing that a lot, and I mean a lot, and I was getting really frustrated with it, because I like had the theory like knowledge and everything for the multiple choice. I had that, like I was ready, but the hazard perception I just couldn't get, and it didn't matter how many practices I did, I was just finding it so difficult. And I was like, okay, I'll try and click a little bit later then, but then like it's hard to explain, but I was just finding it very difficult. Sometimes I would click and I would only score like 2 points or whatever, so it didn't matter like how often I tried, I was only like scoring like ever like 2 or 3 points, and sometimes like 0 or 1. And I was like never passing the actual like mock tests. So I was very nervous going into the test, but actually my advice would be, if you're feeling the same way that I was feeling and you're feeling really nervous about it, like you're not gonna pass because you're finding it really difficult, I would say don't stress, because the actual test is so much easier than the practice clips like here, because first of all, it's much better quality, and I also think that quite a lot of the time, for example in these clips, although it's really good practice and stuff, the quality wasn't good. So like if say a hazard was someone's indicator, I wouldn't really be able to see the indicator because the quality wasn't as good. but when you actually go into the test, the quality is amazing. You can see everything. It's so crisp and clear, and I also think like it kind of moves slower. Like, I don't know if that was just me, but I thought that the car was moving slower, and it was just a lot easier in that way. So obviously I managed to pass it, which I was so thankful for, and it was just a massive relief. But also what I would say is click a lot more than you think you should click, and I think that's what I was probably doing wrong in the practices on this DVD, was not clicking enough. And that's because I know that if you click too many times you can like fail and just get a score of 0, and that's what I was really afraid of. So I was like, oh, you can only like click once or twice or I'm gonna fail, but it's not actually like that. Just don't click like loads of times in a row or like in a pattern, if you get what I mean. But definitely click a good few times. So what I would do is, this is my advice if you're about to sit your test, because it really helped me pass, is click as soon as you see the hazard. So as soon as you see, say there was a cyclist and he like turned around, I would click, because to me that would mean they were about to like turn or like do something or make a maneuver or something, or change direction or speed or something. So I would click then, and then I would click again a couple seconds later, and then if they did something different, like say popped their arm out or something to give a signal that they were turning, then I would click again. So definitely click more than you think you should, but obviously not in a pattern or not loads. That would be my advice, definitely, because definitely what I was doing wrong was just only clicking once. Don't do that, because if you're like me and you click too early, you're going to score 0. But if you were to click when you first see it, even if that scored you 0, click again like a second or two later, you're going to score like 3 or 4 or something like that. Or even like if you score 1 or 2, it's better than nothing. So that would be my advice there. So it's also a lot easier if you know what you're looking out for. So hazards are anything that will cause you to change your speed or your direction. So look out for other vehicles, maybe they're brake lights, maybe they're indicating, they're turning in somewhere or coming out from a junction. Look out for cyclists, pedestrians, traffic lights. Others that you might not necessarily think of are roadworks and wide vehicles and things like that. So when you know what you're looking for, you're more likely to click quicker, because you know exactly what you're trying to spot. But yeah, don't worry about your test. It's honestly not as scary as it seems. I was very nervous for it, but I feel like if you just put a lot of effort and work into it and actually revise and practice and know your stuff, then you'll be absolutely fine. So yeah, those are my main tips for helping you guys to pass your theory test. Let me know if you have sat your theory test, how you did in it, how you found it, what tips you would give to other people who are about to sit theirs, and what like advice you would give them for revising and things like that. And yeah, I hope this helps some of you guys. If it does help you, then let me know on Instagram or comment down below or something. I really hope this is helpful, and I know that a lot of you guys wanted to see this video, so hopefully I've been able to give you some useful advice. I mean, I feel like quite a lot of what I've said is kind of just obvious, but hopefully it's helped anyways. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye!